Hey everyone, this is Christian Heimel, host of Press Row. Thanks so much for listening to the following broadcast, courtesy of Public House Media.
Hi, this is Emily.
This is Lindsay.
And this is Elizabeth,
co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Once you are done with this episode, we hope you'll come check out our show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk nerdy to you about fandoms, fan fiction, and all pop culture for nerds that you can think of. A new show comes out every Friday.
Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
In 2014, Germany shocked the world by putting together one of the most talented and most dominant rosters in soccer history.
Götze! It's Mario Götze!
Argentina, they were so close, yet couldn't put it together when it most mattered. Now you've got an Argentina team that's hungry for revenge.
Messi! And Yeva couldn't stop it!
But what about England?
Pass to Rooney. Sturridge in the middle, there he is, goal!
Or France?
And Sissoko! They're running riot!
Or Spain?
It's broken for Fabregas, now it's Iniesta! This is it! That's the goal!
All 32 teams in this tournament are vying for the opportunity to hoist the World Cup trophy.
Still Gervinho! Oh, he's done it!
If you want to be a part of the action at Russia 2018, you're going to need your soccer passport, the World Cup edition. At Public House Media, we are excited to launch a new soccer podcast called Your Soccer Passport World Cup Edition. Come alongside hosts and fans and guests from around the world as we bring you all the action from the 2018 FIFA World Cup. Because who knows, anything can happen in the FIFA World Cup.
What about that? It's John Brooks!
So come on, grab your soccer passport and join us for all the action from Russia 2018.
A sensational volley!
Hello and welcome to Your Soccer Passport World Cup Edition. I'm Baxter Colburn, and we have some exciting action to cover today. The World Cup round of 16 has already just given some of the most spectacular and some of the most breathtaking games of soccer we have witnessed in World Cup history. I'm joined tonight by my co-host, Luis Burranca. Luis, a very good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Your Soccer Podcast. It's great to have you, or Soccer Passport, rather. It's great to have you on this episode of the podcast, sir.
Thank you, Baxter, and hello to everyone that's listening to us in Your Soccer Passport World Cup Edition. And, well, actually, I'm more shocked that I'm happy with this last few days of World Cup edition of the World Cup, and most of it here in the knockout stage. Many people are saying that one question is romantic soccer dead, because so many people are questioning the ways how teams like Argentina, Spain, and Portugal that have this great this type of great players have been knocked out already from the World Cup. Messi and Ronaldo meeting each other at the airport.
Yep.
It's paradoxical.
It is. It very much is. And I think definitely not the way that most soccer pundits would have probably written this World Cup so far. We're going to get a little bit deeper. Luis and I are going to dive deeper into France and Argentina, and then the Portugal versus Uruguay game. Some of our other hosts are in the process of recording another episode as well, too, that you'll be able to hear shortly, recapping the games that took place on Sunday. And once again, some stunning games that were taking place. I was watching Spain versus Russia on my phone while I was in church this morning. Don't tell my pastor, but hey, when the World Cup is on every 4 years, you make an effort, right, Luis, to watch the game no matter where you are and what's going on. So I think from that perspective, I think it'll be okay. But we want to remind everybody before we get into the show that we can be found on Public House Media. We've been featured for the last couple of weeks on the homepage of Spreaker.com, which has been absolutely awesome. So a big thanks to the fans and folks over on Spreaker.com. They've been wonderful to us, tweeting out about the show and featuring it on the homepage if you just go to Spreaker.com. Among the other websites that you can go to, of course, the phmedia.com, We are on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. The list goes on and on and on, so there's a lot of great places that you can find your Soccer Passport World Cup edition. Without further ado, I think we need to just get right into this, Luis. This Argentina versus France game is not only being called the best game of this tournament, but one of potentially the top 10 games to ever take place in World Cup history. This was a game that saw France take an early lead in the 13th minute. Argentina came roaring back and was up 2-0 for a decent amount of the game. And then all of a sudden, France started to claw back, and eventually take a lead and ultimately finish off Argentina and send Messi home early, as you mentioned. I was dumbfounded and just absolutely beside myself watching this game, and ultimately watching one of the, like you were saying, one of the soccer royalty going home early in Argentina. But I want to get your thoughts before I get too deep into what I want to say. So what was your perspective watching this game, Luis? Because I think a lot of people have mixed thoughts about this game.
Well, first thing I did after France's victory, instead of France's victory, I want to call it Argentina's chronicle of a foretold death. That's main title for this Argentinian campaign. Another Argentinian campaign that's with that title, and I wanna start saying Argentina. It's a team that right now has so many egos. We talked about this weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Argentina right now has no generation left. No generation remaining. Messi has no companions as he has in Barcelona. Messi cannot play in the place as he wants to, as he plays in Barcelona, because in Barcelona he played in every single position that it's on top. He played on the right side, on the left side, in the middle, behind the central forward. In Argentina, he did the same thing, and not with so much success as he did in Barcelona. And this was another example. This was another demonstration of the Argentinian, how can I say it, warmed up situation. Sampaoli, the Argentinian head coach, didn't knew where to put this guy in this match. And ever since last week when Argentina beat Nigeria, all the players started to talk with Sampaoli. This team was not built 100% by Jorge Sampaoli. It was made also by the main players. So there's a big demonstration of that Argentinian locker room taking over the entire team. Sampaoli right now is a hostage of his players.
It really is, and I would agree with that assessment as well too. We here in America have been playing this diagnosis game of trying to say, well, we compare everything to the NBA, to the NFL, obviously here, and we say, okay, Messi is, some people are calling him the greatest of all time, and here in the United States we compare players like Tom Brady for the New England Patriots, or LeBron James,
or Peyton Manning,
exactly, Peyton Manning,
this top players that we consider the greatest of all times.
Exactly right. And, it's always funny because when those that are not big soccer fans start to try to pick up the World Cup as they do every 4 years, they're like, oh, this Messi guy, yeah, he's the greatest, and then I'm like, do you understand the concept of who Messi is? So then you have to put it into Americanized terms for these people to understand it more. But Argentina reminded me a lot of Messi, like LeBron James did in the NBA, because LeBron James never really has a good supporting cast around him. I would say Argentina maybe had a couple of other nicer pieces, but Argentina never really looked like they wanted to play, and at least that's what I saw in the first two games for the group stages at least, and I don't know if you saw a different thing or not, but when I watched this Argentina team, they looked like they were almost entitled. That's kind of what Germany fell into, I feel like, as well. It was like, listen, Argentina, Germany, they're just going to scoot right through everybody, get right to the final, and no big deal at all. And then all of a sudden reality set it, and all these teams are saying, hey, we can beat these guys. They don't care. They're just trying to think they can scoot by on merit because they have Messi and because, they won the World Cup last year for Germany. And I think that was the big downfall. Messi really didn't have a good tournament. I think people are figuring out how to defend Messi, how to defend Ronaldo, hence why we see both of them go home early.
Yeah, and besides, as I said in the start of the show, I was talking about this type of teams that want more to play well than win the match.
Yes.
I have some Uruguayan friends, colleagues also, that I was talking to a few minutes, actually yesterday, and they told me, in my case, Peru, that was playing very well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to play well or do you want to win? Because many people are starting to consider that they want to see the Messi show, they want to see the Cristiano Ronaldo show. They don't want to see them winning. They wanted to see them making their own show, becoming the stars, leading the team up, putting the team on the back, and making themselves a name for making a name for themselves more than for the team. This kind of players sometimes forget that I'm not considering all of them, but many of those guys, many of those players, I don't know, that more in Germany, in Portugal, Portugal most of it with Cristiano, and Argentina most of it with Messi, and some few others, they pay attention more than the name that has in their back, than the shield that they have in the front. So
agreed. I think you're hitting the nail right on the head with that, honestly, Luis. Because I think at what point do you, as a team, start realizing, look, we're at the World Cup. We're not just at some Sunday rec league tournament and say, if we lose, we still get free beer at the end. No, this is what your legacy as a country is judged on. This is what you as players are judged on for the rest of your career. Messi is going to now have this, unless he comes back again for the World Cup again in 4 years. It's always going to be Messi's the greatest of all time, but he never won a World Cup, but he never won the World Cup, but Argentina never showed up. That's the stigma that's going to follow him around, at least for Ronaldo. I mean, he can say he's won the European Championship, so he's got that kind of going on for him in that regards. But Argentina, the way they played in this game, it was hard for me to say, listen, they're still a great team. Sure, they have good players. Di Maria's goal, fantastic strike from him. I don't think anybody can take that away from him. However, when you look at France and the fact that people were so critical, we were critical and still are critical of France on this show, saying, listen, this is a bunch of young party guys that are more concerned about how many Instagram followers they have and what kind of color Pogba's hair is going to be before the game. And yet they dug in and they said, all right, we actually have a really good team, and we are going to stretch Argentina to the max, and we're going to have some of our young rising stars step up and actually produce at a high level. And that's what they did. And now France, not Argentina, is on to the next round with, I think, a lot of doubters changed because they put a team like Argentina in their place on the biggest stage possible. So I think that really puts a big question mark, honestly, for a lot of people, because I think that kind of removes away a lot of the doubt when you're looking at it from this perspective. So that really kind of gets me excited when you look at what France is capable of doing. This is a team, I feel like, that is full of a lot of young superstars and really is going to continue to try to keep moving forward in a higher capacity. And could they maybe be a Final Four team now after this big win against Argentina? I think they have the opportunity to do it. That sounds crazy to some people, but in my mind, I think France has the keys and the tools to now do it after that big win against Argentina.
Well, if you want to talk in that way about France, I don't want to be a magician. I don't want to predict something that might not occur. But yesterday we just saw Messi losing the match. In my opinion, not, and it could be the opinion of millions around the world. We just saw Messi losing the match against the guy that might break that spell, that curse of that 10-year rivalry between Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo for the Golden Ball. So I'm talking about Kylian Mbappe.
Yep.
I just saw so much talent, so much
He just looks so
audacity
confident, doesn't he?
and confidence with himself. I mean, he's only 19 years old, and 19 years old, Messi couldn't make it very well at the World Cup. He scored one goal in Germany, and he didn't make it the way Mbappe did it. I'm watching too much great things and a bright future in this guy, and putting Mbappe alongside people that are very generous in inside the field, like Oliver Giroud or Antoine Griezmann, that they don't want to become stars by themselves, but they want to make the team the star.
Exactly.
That's the kind of players that the stars in this occasion need. That's how Mbappe works at PSG. That's how Mbappe worked very well at Monaco, and that's the way he's working in the French team. So Messi's not working that way. Messi's working with some other people that want to make a name for themselves, but thinking that they are all that they are by themselves in the field and not with some other people. Tell me a guy that can take Messi's torch in the future. Argentinian guy. I don't know anybody.
None.
Not even Paulo Dybala.
No.
Not even Paulo Dybala.
No.
He almost didn't play. He didn't play any match in the World Cup. So in France, there's more. There's more generosity between their teammates. They don't wanna make the other guy feel alone in the field, and that's how teamwork is. For me, that's the same teamwork that led France back in 1998. The only difference is that this time France has more bigger names. I'm not comparing them.
Right.
But in this time, back in 1998, France was more like an underdog. France is underdog no more in this World Cup. 20 years later,
Agreed.
They have big stars. Antoine Griezmann is the star of Atletico de Madrid, or Kylian Mbappe, one of the three big stars in PSG. Oliver Giroud in Chelsea. Paul Pogba in Manchester United. That's how great teamwork between stars is all about, and that's how France make it into the quarterfinals, and fair and square. That's the only team, in my opinion, that's playing soccer the way it is.
And I think that's the big part about it too. I think you really hit the nail on the head, is that this is one of the few teams that is playing the game the way it's supposed to be played. They're not out here dumping and diving and trying to, in a sense, fake their way to victory. France is out there playing their hearts out, and I think that they, among many other teams, are really starting to realize, listen, we have the potential to go on and really win this tournament. Let's go do it. Let's have some fun. And I think that they really are talking about possibly being one of those Final Four teams. I really am buying into what France is doing, and I think it starts with the fact that they went up against arguably one of the better teams that they would have to face the rest of the way, and they said, no, it's our turn. You're done. Go home.
Yeah, definitely. It's not like Uruguay did it against Portugal. If you want, we can talk this right now. But
yeah, let's do it.
Talk about this right now. But in the Uruguayan case, that was another great demonstration of Garra Charrua is all about. It's not the team that plays soccer very well. This is a team it's only focused in win, not to play well, but win. That's the other example of how can you get far in this World Cup. There's the French example that I'm a supporter. Right now. France is getting all my support in this World Cup, alongside Mexico.
Yes.
Because of the great teamwork, the great way that they can play soccer. Uruguay in this case is another example that how can you get far in the World Cup, but in this century, in 21st century, it can take you far, but it cannot make you. It cannot make you a champion. It can make you a winner. It can make you a winner definitely because you're focused only in win. No matter if you put asleep millions around the world. Because actually I don't like the Uruguayan game. The match against Saudi Arabia put me asleep. Baxter, it put me asleep in that match when I was expecting a massacre that day. It put me asleep, and that's the day I didn't want Uruguay to win the World Cup. They fought more than they wanted to smash the opponent because they have the players to smash an opponent.
Mm-hmm.
They have Martin Cáceres. They had Luis Suarez, a great goalkeeper like Fernando Muslera, Edinson Cavani, and this new great generation like Lucas Torreira. Lucas Torreira right now is. For me, the great Uruguayan revelation in this World Cup. I think he's only 22 years old, and he's the new Arsenal player, and he's only 5.7 feet tall. He's only 5.7. He's one of the shortest guys in this World Cup. Actually,
yes.
No, I'm not kidding. The shortest guy in this World Cup is one that then it's impressing more the people than I ever expected.
Yes, yep, I would agree with you on that too. I mean, just for those that maybe may have missed the game as well too, Uruguay did win this game 2-1 thanks to two great goals from I feel like a man's name that hasn't been mentioned a lot on the club level, but Cavani scores 2 goals. He shows that he can be successful and that he is still a very dominant striker in the box. I feel like his career has taken a couple of different turns here in the last couple of years at the club level, but at the international level, you need a goal. Cavani still is your man. What do you make, though, Luis, of the lack of Luis Suarez?
Well, we talked a few weeks ago in this show about getting alongside between the forwards. Actually, Luis Suarez is not the main star in Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
It's Lionel Messi.
Yes.
He's actually the Robin of the Batman.
Yep.
In many cases, and he's making it the same way right now in the Uruguayan team. Cavani is right now the star. Cavani is hitting all the main front pages of the journals, and I can see in Suarez's face that he doesn't want to be as a star. Also, he wants to help the team. That's another great example of teamwork. But he's more focused in win than to make the goal by himself. There's no individualities in this team in Uruguay, and that's that ideology that Oscar Tabarez put them into their heads ever since 2007. I don't want a team that wants to be a star in a World Cup. I want a team that wants to win.
Exactly.
And no matter how. That's what Garra Charrúa is all about. We don't want to make the people like us.
Exactly.
I want people to see us winning. That's how they did it in 2010. I don't know if you remember. Luis Suarez, he touched the ball with the hands in the
Yep.
and he caused the penalty for Ghana. Yeah. Luis Suarez bit Giorgio Chiellini and only just to not lose. They will do every single thing just to get the win. Not there's no too much theory with Uruguay. We can talk about Uruguay like until 12 for 3 hours, but there's no talk when it comes about Oscar Tabarez kind of teams. It's more about the practical thing. They don't believe too much in ideologies. They believe more in the game itself, and they believe only, like I said for the 10th time, in winning. Actually, I don't know if they might that this might bring them the World Cup home, but they will take him very far away, but very far in this World Cup when everyone wants to show what the world to show the world what they are capable of, individualities everywhere, and that's what it killed Germany, Spain, France, and it's killing many other teams ahead. It killed obviously right now Denmark. That they had more individualities that they wanted to believe themselves as a team, and it's killing the romantic soccer, the romantic way that we are watching soccer right now. That it's the same way our parents looked at it.
Exactly. Even you and I as kids, I feel like as well too. I think we're looking at just a totally different brand of soccer nowadays, and it's I think sad because that means that the world I think is changing. Of course, the players that you and I grew up watching, and those are the players that are coming towards the ends of their career. My son's never going to get to watch Messi and Ronaldo play. He's going to be watching. Who knows? What
Mbappé maybe.
Yeah,
he's just getting started.
Exactly. Who knows what the World Cup is going to look like, even when it comes, to North America in 8 years. Like that's going to be. Teams are going to be so different. We're going to see guys like Mbappé and others coming towards the end of their careers, and this new wave, this new generation will be coming into this world. So I'm really interested to see what that looks like.
Want to know something? In my opinion, watching the Uruguay, Rinus Michels, the guy that led the Netherlands back into the 1974 final, must be he will want to kill himself and be dead once again in his tomb, because this Uruguayan team kills everything of what total soccer is, what they call that, what the Dutch people call it that way 40 years ago, was all about. And Uruguay is totally the opposite. Many people in a more several way, they call it the anti-soccer team. Anti-soccer team.
Interesting.
And they are proud to be called by that way, because the only thing they care about is to win. No matter how, if they want to touch the ball with the hands, or biting someone, or playing a game that can put asleep the world for 90 minutes, they just want to get the win. No matter how, no matter when, they want to make it.
Exactly right, and I think that is the big thing as well too, is that you want those teams, you want to be able to support those teams. Coming up on July the 6th is when Uruguay and France will clash. We're going to look ahead to some of the other games here briefly before we wrap up the show, but your quick thoughts about France and Uruguay, Luis. Who do you think wins that game?
Well, I just said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I'm still a romantic guy when it comes about soccer. So I want France to get it. Because Uruguay could have all the heart in the world, but the heart is not enough. There's also discipline. Well, I'm not saying that Uruguayans do not have discipline, but I mean in the field. I want more. How can I say this? I wanna see them dominate something, and France can dominate a match if they want to. They didn't do it in the group stage because they didn't dominate Australia. They didn't dominate Peru.
Right.
And definitely they didn't dominate Denmark. They did it obviously right now with Argentina, but it was because what I said a few weeks ago. The real World Cup starts in the knockout stage.
Exactly.
For every
right.
single team. And France is showing us what it's all about. So in my opinion, I want France to get it. I'm not saying that they can make it against Uruguay, but I want to do it. I want them to get the win, because it's not all about the heart. And I learned it because of France and Denmark in the matches against Peru. It's not all everything about the heart. it's all about the way you can play, and that's what romantic soccer is all about.
Exactly. And I think that's what we're hoping we see more as we continue deeper here into the World Cup as well, too. I'm going to have to agree with you as well. I am definitely siding on the side of the team that I feel like France is going to be the team that wins, in all honesty. So I've got my hands solely on my French allegiance there for that team. Now that all three of the teams that I would ever think about supporting are all out of the tournament, the U.S. and Italy didn't qualify, and then I'm like, great, I'll cheer for Spain, and now Spain's gone as well too. So, vive la France, I guess is where we're on to the next team, I guess. I'm kind of going for England as well too. So we'll see. But all right, let's look really quick here because there's two games that are coming up on Tuesday. On July the 3rd, you've got Sweden, Switzerland, and Colombia, England. Let's just do a quick, give me your high overview fast on Sweden versus Switzerland. I think Sweden surprised a lot of folks, and I think people are really just being hush-hush about the fact that they beat Mexico 3-0. I don't care what people are saying about Mexico, maybe thinking they had already qualified or whatever at that point. Mexico was actually very close to not qualifying based on if the other game had gone a totally different direction. However, Sweden dropped 3 goals on Mexico, and people are saying this could be Mexico's year. I feel like you have to start giving a little bit of credit to Sweden for how well they played in that game.
Too many matches right now. I'm going to do it one by one. First of all, I want to talk about Sweden against Switzerland. In my opinion, Switzerland, it's still that very tasteless team. I don't get to see them too much with that spice that those Central European teams have, like Germany or how can I say it? Like Germany, that they sometimes try to imitate that school and make it and making their own. We're just getting on this because of the Sheridan Shaqiri or Granit Xhaka story, very emotional story. But as I said, it's not all about the heart. It's more about the way that you can play soccer in a more disciplined way in the field, and that's how Sweden was making things the way it was supposed to be. Sweden, in my opinion, I didn't imagine them getting into the knockout stage, and
I didn't either.
They surprised me getting into the knockout stage and as the leader of the group. So this without Zlatan Ibrahimovic, I think that this Swedish team has woken up a juggernaut.
I agree. And I think that also proves that thing. And I think this is important for the development of Swedish soccer as a whole, is the ability for them to prove we don't need Zlatan on this team to be a good team. Because with Zlatan, even with him, they still couldn't go as far as I think they would like to go. And I think now that Sweden has really stepped it up and said, listen, we actually got a pretty good team. You might not be watching us, and we're okay with that, but don't come jumping on our bandwagon when we all of a sudden come through and maybe put on a couple of beatdowns on some teams. And I think that's what they showed against Mexico, because I'm watching the highlights again as we're talking about this, and Sweden looked really dominant in this game. I'm not going to even lie about it, honestly. They played well, they attacked well, and they made Mexico look uncomfortable. And that's what you have to do at the World Cup, is you need to push the other team that you're playing outside of their comfort zone and show them that they are not going to be the best team in this match. And Sweden was like, we got this. We're going to show you how good we can actually be. And I'm really glad for them, honestly.
Yeah, and just to end this Sweden against Switzerland thing, there's a theory about them, what I want to call the mad scientist theory. When you put out one great big player, you don't know what can happen with that team. It happened with Liverpool. It happened with Liverpool when Philippe Coutinho was in. Jurgen Klopp put him out. He sold this guy to Barcelona, and he woken up a big monster in Liverpool. And this is happening also with Sweden. Zlatan Ibrahimovic is no longer in. His great big fat ego is not anymore in this humble Swedish team, because it's a very humble team.
It
in
is.
my opinion.
I completely agree.
So it's all about being mentally well and not and not get along with that main star guy like Ibrahimovic. For me,
Exactly.
in my opinion, and this is another thing that can contradict, be against all my thoughts of this romantic soccer thing, but Sweden goes very well with that heart thing, in my opinion, because they are also very disciplined. They are so focused into make a great teamwork, pass the ball very well between each other. There are no egos in that team. Switzerland has it still. Switzerland has it. They depend so much on those guys, Granit Xhaka and Xherdan Shaqiri. They relied so much on this guy, Stefan Lichtsteiner. So I think that in this match, the most humble team is going to win, and that's Sweden.
Yep, and I completely agree with you on that one as well, too. Let's flip over quickly to Colombia versus England as we get ready to close out this edition of Your Soccer Passport World Cup edition. England, how good are they realistically? Because they beat Tunisia, which you're supposed to do. They beat Panama, which you're supposed to do. And then they lost to Belgium, but at that point they had already qualified, and I think it was more of a listen, let's just not get hurt, and let's just try to get through. And England now has to face Colombia in a game that they actually really have to care about. Not that they didn't care against Belgium, but I think the level of we need to win this game as opposed to, even if we don't win this game, we're still good, is obviously totally different. Does Colombia, with what they're dealing with right now, have enough, in your mind, to beat England? And or is England actually even good enough to beat a good team in the sense of what a Colombia could bring at them? Because I think we both can agree Colombia is worlds different than a Tunisia or a Panama.
Well, we talked too much about England and the juggernaut they were in the group stage. Well, except the match against Belgium.
Yeah.
England is one of the teams that have the greatest communication between their teammates. Ever since, in my opinion, ever since the 1998 team, the famous Fergie Babes with David Beckham, Paul Scholes, Gary Neville. Ever since that, it had to pass 20 years just to get a team like that with stars in the making.
Yep.
With stars in the making, because they are so young, each and every one of them. Dele Alli, Raheem Sterling, Harry Kane,
Jesse Lingard,
and that's what I like about England. They made very well this team under construction, and they have all the coins to win this key. However, let's get into the other side. Colombia has a great big vendetta in the World Cup, and most of it Radamel Falcao has woken up once again, in my opinion. Is
Yes.
Woken up once again. The great killer that I was talking about in the pre-World Cup shows has woken up once again, and he has a vendetta. He has a vendetta in this World Cup because he was the star in the qualifiers back in 2012, 2013, and an injury puts him out in the 2014 World Cup. Well, that's the positive part in Colombia. The negative part is that yesterday James Rodriguez was confirmed not to be in this match because of an injury, and that's what it's gonna be heavy for Colombia, because James Rodriguez, in my opinion, has no backup. In my opinion, his greatest backup was not called up. His name was Edwin Cardona, the Boca Juniors player, and he did it. He was the guy that was supposed to take the lead in the attack in this kind of match. I don't see Colombia too much getting into the British side in Tuesday's match. I want Colombia to shut me up once again, but but I don't get to see them too much shocking the world once again like they did it in 2014. That James Rodriguez was at his best shape,
his absolute best.
And without Radamel Falcao, Colombia was one of the greatest teams in that World Cup edition.
Yep.
So that's the great wall that they have to break if they want to repeat that same campaign. In my opinion, it's not the same. I don't like it the way I liked it 4 years ago.
Yep.
That's a homework that Radamel Falcao has to change, and if he wants to bring Colombia the greatest joy ever, to repeat the same joy that they had 4 years ago, he must become once again the great killer of that team, and relying also on both polar sides. In this case, Juan Guillermo Cuadrado, that's already in the offensive section. Let's remember that like 3 years ago, Cuadrado was playing as right back in the first line of defenders. He's now already back in the offensive section, and alongside this guy, I forgot his name, Quintero, Juan Quintero.
Yep.
And he's also in his best shape. And without James, it is obviously that Quintero is gonna occupy the left side, because they will not play with an offensive midfielder like James Rodriguez.
Right.
They will play 4-3-3, but more in a defensive way, not in an offensive attacking side.
Yeah, and that's that. I would agree with you on pretty much all accounts there as well too. Does Colombia have what it takes? I think they've got the couple of players to be a good team. However, I really like what you're saying, and I agree that I think England has the star power, has the young, fiery star power, kind of like a France as well too, where they've got those young up-and-coming players that are really starting to change the game of soccer. And even the veterans they have on the team are still quality players as well too. Jamie Vardy is sitting on the bench. Hey, that's a pretty good player to have coming off the bench, I feel like, if you need someone to come in and score some goals for you. England is the favorite in this game, in my opinion, and I think England will win the game. And ultimately, if they do, they will either have to deal with a Switzerland or a Sweden. I like England or Colombia, really, winning that game. I like England more so winning that next game as well, too. Suddenly, if you're England, you're sitting potentially against Russia or Croatia with a chance to make a shot at the World Cup. So that's a big opportunity there. And I think this side of the bracket is far more watered down based on how the group stages and how the first round of games has gone. It's going to be a possibility for the three Lions to maybe get almost all the way to the World Cup final this year based on the side of the bracket that they got pulled into. So to start believing in England, I think there's a very real chance that something could happen. Just obviously got to wait for the couple of pieces that need to fall the way they do. But all right, Luis, we have talked about this long enough, but we need to get running. Any final thoughts from you before we sign off for another edition of the Your Soccer Passport World Cup Edition show?
Well, that obviously you can find me on Twitter. My name is you can find me as .Luis Burranca. And obviously with all my data about the World Cup actually right now, and listen to my radio show every single day in between Monday to Friday, Sentidos Deportivos. It's online. You can find it in Onda Digital. And, thank you, Baxter, for another opportunity.
Absolutely, Luis. It is always a pleasure to have you on. Your knowledge is endless, and I really appreciate it, and your passion as well, too, for the beautiful game. You can find me on social media by looking for @Baxter Colburn on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever you find your social media. I am @Baxter Colburn. You can find Public House Media by going to thephmedia.com or searching for the PH Media on social media platforms or Public House Media, however you do it. Special thanks to you for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and leave a review if you haven't done so already, and let your friends know about the podcast as well, too. We've got more exciting content coming up for you as the World Cup continues to progress. More soccer to be played the next couple of days. Watch for more editions of the show. Special thanks once again to Luis Burranca for stopping by. I'm Baxter Colburn saying thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Your Soccer Passport World Cup Edition.